It is super early in the morning and I am tired as hell, but yesterday the final episode of the Falcon and Winter Soldier just dropped. And you know what that means? I gotta do my weekly thoughts slash breakdown video on it. For those of you guys that have been watching this video series weekly, you'll know exactly what to expect in this video. But for everyone who hasn't, just to break it down for you guys, these videos are a little bit different than what I usually do. They're a little bit less scripted and a little bit less structured. It's just me talking and giving my thoughts on the episode, almost like in a podcast style of video. And because of the way these episodes are structured, there's just no way I can avoid spoilers. So I do have to give a big fat spoiler warning for episode 6 of the Falcon and Winter Soldier. If you haven't seen it yet, make sure to watch that first, then come back here. Alright guys, that's the spoiler warning, so let's get right into this episode. Overall, I enjoyed it. It wasn't my favorite episode out of the series, but I definitely did like it a lot. I think there definitely were some better episodes. This one was mainly just action, which I was really expecting for this episode. I think a lot of critics were actually shocked by this because looking at the Rotten Tomatoes score, for some reason, this episode, it just tanks down really low. Like every episode has been between 90 and 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and then this one just goes randomly down to 57%. So I'm not sure what critics saw that I didn't, but they think this episode is pretty bad. And I think part of this is probably due to their expectations. I really don't see this show as like episodic. To me, it's just one big movie that's been chopped up into 6 parts. So if you look at the last episode, which was kind of like the calm before the storm, there wasn't any action. It was just a bunch of characters talking. And overall, it was just quite slow compared to some of the other episodes, which means it was kind of building up to the finale. So I was really expecting this finale to pretty much only be action. I wasn't really expecting for there to be these deep character moments or anything like that, and I think that's what a lot of these critics thought. You can't really look at these episodes as individual episodes. Like, you shouldn't really rank them by that. I think it's better to look at each episode as a piece of a much larger, like, film pretty much. So yeah, I was really expecting this episode to just be action, and on that, it didn't fail to deliver. It starts off right where we left off with episode 5. Carly and the Flag Smashers are trying to stop the GRC's vote from going through, and Bucky and Sam are there to stop them. This opening action scene, it did feel a little bit generic, I'll be honest, with all the smoke and everybody rushing out of the room and everything like that. It definitely did feel like something that we've seen in tons of movies and stuff. But the action scene that comes out of that, which pretty much takes up the entire episode, with Falcon chasing down the helicopter and Bucky chasing down the rest of the Flag Smashers, that stuff was just super awesome. Anyways, right in the beginning of the episode, we get the big reveal of Sam Wilson in his new Captain America suit. They've been hyping this up a lot, and we all knew we were going to see it, and it was finally here. And I'm going to be honest, I kind of have mixed feelings on this suit. So let's talk about this because there's so much to go through with this new Captain America suit. I'm not really sure if you guys saw yesterday's video, but in that video, I mentioned how I didn't really want Falcon's suit to be based off the one that we see in the comics. Like, I know Falcon's Captain America suit is kind of iconic in a way now, but I have just never really been a big fan of it in the comics, so I didn't want the live action version to look that much like it. And man, they just did the exact opposite of what I wanted, because this suit is literally just the comic book outfit in real life. I gotta respect Marvel for doing that, because usually they don't take comic book suits and adapt them just perfectly to real life like that. They usually give suits like a realistic and modern looking spin, but this thing is just straight up out of the comics. Like, you just take it, drag and drop, it's the same suit. And unfortunately, because I didn't like the comic outfit, I just didn't really like the live action one either. I think the more I see it in live action, the more it grows on me, but in general, I wanted it to be something a little less bright and colorful. In general, I prefer the darker colored Captain America suits, kind of like the one that Steve Rogers wears in the second Captain America movie. That stealth suit looks awesome, and it's always been my favorite Captain America suit. And Sam's suit is just like the polar opposite of stealthy. It's bright and it really stands out, which I guess is sort of the point. They wanted this suit to have a lot of the white color, because as you know, the Captain America suit is based off the American flag, that being the red, blue, and white. And on the American flag, the white actually represents purity, and that's why John Walker's Captain America suit has no white on it, because it's supposed to show that he doesn't have any pure innocence to him. So I guess they wanted to show that Sam has a lot of it, so they just gave him a bunch of white all over his suit. So the message is there, and it makes sense. It just doesn't look that cool to me. I don't know, man. The more I see it, the more it starts to grow on me, but in general, my first reaction was it just looked a little out of place and a little bit too comic booky. And also, I'm not sure if they designed this suit in the same way they designed Steve Rogers, but Anthony Mackie looked really locked up and kind of robotic and clunky in the thing. It kind of reminded me of Christian Bale in the Dark Knight series, where he couldn't turn his neck and he'd have to move his entire body every time he wanted to look from left to right. It just gave me similar vibes to that, even though I know he can move his neck a lot more than that. I don't know what it is. Something about it just makes it look really heavy compared to Steve Rogers' Captain America suit. Regardless, I do love the fact that they still gave him his wings and their vibranium now, which is even more awesome. I know there was some debate on that last week, whether he'd actually have the wings or not, but I'm glad they stuck with it because it's iconic to him, and I just don't think he would have been the same without it. So yeah, it's still a cool suit, I guess, and I'm sure I'm going to come to love it in time. Now, as I'm sure you guys know, this show has a lot of talking in it, which is a good thing, I think, and I'm glad that they added a lot of dialogue in the fight sequences as well. Like right in the beginning, seeing Bucky try to talk Carly out of her plan was a nice build-up since this episode was pretty much going to be all action. So they still did have those character moments and interactions where they needed them. I don't think it was too much action at all. I think it was a perfect amount, really. Anyways, most of the character arcs came to a fitting close here. Some of them did not, and we'll discuss that in a bit. The major one being Sam, who's pretty much like the main character of the show at this point. And in this episode, he sees the biggest change not only physically becoming Captain America, but also in the way that he talks and carries himself. His final speech at the end was the most Captain America thing that I've ever heard, and it still just felt really unique compared to the types of monologues that Steve would give. Like, yes, they're both Captain America, but they seem to be like Captain Americas in their own unique way, which is a good thing. The thing that I liked most about Sam in this episode was the way that he never really gave up on Carly. Throughout the show, he always understood her struggle, but just doesn't agree with the way that she goes about things. He didn't want to kill her in this episode, he didn't even want to fight her, and you can really see that every time Carly is screaming at him to fight back while punching the shield. And I think that's a really Captain America move. It was a good thing for him to do that. Seeing him carry her body in her last moments was really touching, I think. Yes, she became a villain at the end and had to be stopped, but he still tried to see the best in her, which is the most Captain America thing that he could do. Like, I think one of Captain America's biggest traits is to always see the best in people, and that's something that he really displayed here. I know a lot of people thought it was weird that he was consoling this person who was pretty much a terrorist and killed people, but the thing is, Captain America, being the righteous person that he is, would try and see past that and see why she's doing what she's doing, and try and take the path with the less violence to solve the issue. This actually reminds me a lot of Steve and the Winter Soldier from the second Captain America movie. At the final climax of that film, Steve is fighting the Winter Soldier, and everybody's telling him that the Winter Soldier is evil and he's bad and that you need to defeat him, but at the end of the day, he just won't fight him, and the Winter Soldier is telling him to fight back, similar to what Carly is doing here with Sam, and at the end of the day, he just won't do it. He won't give up on the person. He's going to try and see the best in them. So I thought that was a really interesting parallel between Sam's Captain America and Steve's. Anyway, Sam's character arc about being a black man and also being Captain America comes to a very fitting end here. There was that one sentence in his final speech that was super amazing, and it just wraps up his entire journey throughout this season beautifully. No super serum, no blonde hair or blue eyes. The only power he has is that he believes we can do better. That was perfect. It was a perfect line, and it just wraps up this entire story arc perfectly. I really couldn't have imagined a better line to write for that scene. It was amazing. And I'm also glad that Isaiah came around to understanding Sam and why there can actually be a black Captain America. Isaiah was kind of a character that none of us really agreed with. He'd always say there could never be a black Captain America. Although you completely understand why he holds that belief because he's been through some horrible stuff. But at the end of the day, Sam is able to show him a better side here and show him that there really can be a black Captain America. Also, the fact that he gets that memorial at the end was very touching. It was such a powerful moment. Every scene with Isaiah this season has been super powerful, and I've loved every single one of them. And yeah, Sam's journey throughout this entire season has just been amazing, and he really feels like the new Captain America. I know in Endgame, when it was first revealed that he'd be donning the shield, a lot of people felt really strange about it. They just couldn't accept him as the new Captain America. And that may not even be because of his race. Maybe it was just you didn't really like the character of Falcon and you just couldn't see him in the role of Captain America. But after watching this season, I think it'd be really hard to say that he doesn't fit this role perfectly now. Sam's character really does meet every criteria for being Captain America, and he's doing an awesome job at it, so he's a really new, awesome Captain America. Anyways, let's talk about our secondary character in this episode, that being Bucky. He kind of took a backseat in this episode, to be honest. This has definitely become more of a Sam Wilson show than a Bucky Barnes one. Like, Bucky at this point pretty much feels like Sam's sidekick in a way, and honestly, I don't really mind. I was assuming that was going to happen anyways, just because Sam was going to be getting the shield and the mantle of Captain America. Even with that, though, they still gave Bucky a satisfying conclusion, and everything comes full circle with the father of the guy he killed, as well as his book of amends and the therapist. By the way, in that final little montage of him wrapping everything up, the soundtrack during that moment was absolutely beautiful, and Henry Jackman really just killed that piece. So overall, I really liked Bucky in this show, but he definitely feels like more of the sidekick instead of being like a second main character. Anyways, our villain for the show ended up being Carly instead of John Walker, which was kind of like the most surprising thing to me. We've talked a lot throughout the weeks about how she is shown to be the sympathetic villain, and I kept feeling that they were going to redeem her character in some way. But then every week she'd do something even more evil and slowly go further down this path, which I guess ultimately she wasn't able to escape from. Like after she killed Lamar, it would have been really hard to redeem her character in the eyes of the audience. I don't know why, I just really thought that she was going to end up being a good character, and I thought John Walker was going to be the villain. And that's kind of what I wanted, to be honest, but I'm still okay with the way that her character came to an end. I do like the fact that she actually died, though, because it gives this whole conflict a lot more weight than everyone coming out of it alive. That would have been really lame if everybody just lives through this whole thing and she just ends up on the raft or something. That probably would have felt like too much of a cheesy Marvel ending, so I'm glad they didn't do that. She actually died, and this whole fight had real ramifications. When she died as well, that shot of Sam carrying her down onto the street was just such a beautiful one. The way his wings were open and everything, he just looked like an angel coming down to the sky carrying her body. I think that was one of the best shots in this entire show, and it was just such a wallpaper moment. As for the rest of the Flag Smashers, Zemo pretty much takes all of them out via his own Alfred, which felt very appropriate for his character. All he ever really wants is a world without super soldiers, and that's what he got pretty much. So that was really fitting, I think, and I'm sure we're going to see him again in the sequel. Also, it was great to see Batroc make a return again here. His role in this show was so much bigger than I thought it'd be. I thought he was just going to have a cameo in the beginning of the season, but he's actually been pretty vital to the plot. And George St. Pierre has actually been able to flex a little bit of his acting skills here, and he's actually had some really important lines in some key moments in the show, which is pretty nice to see because usually athletes don't get taken too seriously as actors. I'm still kind of cheesed he died though, since he almost felt like a comedic relief villain in a way. Like I thought he'd continue to show up every season and just get his ass kicked by Captain America every time. So he'd just be like a recurring villain that would kind of tie all these movies and TV shows together. But he's dead now. I guess it's not the biggest loss since he wasn't like a major villain or anything, but it still kind of sucks to see him go. Anyways, in this episode, we also got to see my boy John Walker back in his own Captain America suit with his own Captain America shield. That shield was super bootleg and it didn't really last throughout the fight, but I do like what they did with all these symbolism with the shield and also that metal behind it that inspires him to get back up when he was getting his ass kicked. And also that metal behind it that inspires him to get back up when he was getting beat up by the Flag Smashers. So I actually really liked that he had his own shield that he made with his own hands. I liked his initial interaction with Carly and the Flag Smashers. The way he fights is still so visceral and aggressive, and it just feels so much more violent than the way that Steve fought. And I think that's perfect for him because that's the way he should be as the US agent. But then this one thing happens with his character that I didn't really like, to be honest. John is kind of set up in a scene where he has to make a good decision or a bad one, and I didn't really like what he went with. He had the choice of saving those politicians or going after Carly, and he chose saving the politicians, which was like the good guy move. And that to me felt a little bit offbeat for his character. To me, John Walker was supposed to be the corrupted Captain America, and it was a little weird to see him sort of return to being a hero and going as far as working alongside Bucky and Sam. What made John so intriguing to me was his struggle to live up to the expectation of being Captain America, so removing that struggle and seeing him overcome it felt kind of strange. Like, he's straight up quoting Abraham Lincoln and making arrests, which feels a little jarring considering the state that we just saw him in. Like, he was straight up psychotic, dude. The way he was killing the Flag Smashers with the shield, he just looked a little bit crazy, and now he's the hero again. So that was a little bit weird. They also came back with the heavy-handed symbolism again using the shield. Right when he goes to save the politicians, you can see the broken Captain America shield fall to the ground, which is essentially like him dropping or letting go of his broken self. The shield throughout the show is just super symbolic in every moment that it's been here, whether that's the real shield or not, and I like the way they use it to describe what's going on with the characters. Anyways, at the end here, we also got to see John Walker in his new US agent suit, which is straight out of the comic books. So it's kind of similar to Falcon's in that way, although this one looks a lot better in real life than Sam's does. Maybe it's just because it's darker and everything, but this one just looks a little bit more realistic. But I do really respect the fact that they're staying so true to the comics with the designs for their suits. It's a really ballsy move because a lot of the times these look really cheesy and they're a really hard sell for the audience. But they still did it, which is a bold move. Anyways, John Walker is still my favorite character in this show, I think, but I do feel like they did drop the ball with his character arc a little bit. Either way though, I am glad that he's still alive, since it does mean we're probably going to be seeing more of him in the future. And more John Walker to me is always a good thing. Sharon Carter in this episode was pretty awesome. They were hinting at her being the power broker very heavily in the last episode, so it wasn't really a surprise or anything here. It really seems like they're setting her up to be a villain in the sequel to this series, which I think is a good move for her character. Captain America has enough good guys and sidekicks around him, so I don't think he needed another one in Agent 13. It also looks like Val is going to become some kind of villain as well. And yeah, Sharon will be playing both sides of this government from within, which is a pretty nice setup for the sequel. And I think that pretty much does it for all the major character arcs. The action scenes, on the other hand, here were fantastic. The hand-to-hand combat felt okay, but not as great as some of the other stuff that we got in previous episodes. I think there was definitely less focus on the fight choreography for this episode, but that's mainly because everything with Sam flying around and using the shield at the same time was so amazing. I know I may not be the biggest fan of the suit's design, but I still thought all his flight sequences looked so good. It was also nice to see that Red Wing got an upgrade too. And throughout the show, Sam just does a lot of neat tricks using the shield and wings together in like a combo. Like the way that he protects the pilot from the falling helicopter and the shield at the same time, making one big dome. That was awesome because he's pretty much impenetrable at that point. He's just one large vibranium shield. And then also when he's fighting Carly, the way he uses his wings to plant himself into the ground and then use the shield to block with. I thought that was a pretty unique way to use the wings in hand-to-hand combat. And the rest of the CGI in this show was just top-notch as usual. And this show just continues to feel extremely cinematic. Also, I do gotta mention a Henry Jackman's soundtrack, which has been absolutely amazing over the entire season. He reuses so many great bits from the Winter Soldier and Civil War, which makes those two and this series feel like one coherent storyline. It really makes them blend all together nicely, which he does using the soundtrack, which is really impressive as a composer. Also, that song that plays at the end of the episode, On and On by Curtis Harding, is fantastic, and I've had it on repeat all day. And now that the series has come to a close, I did want to give a final rank on what I thought about this season overall. So if I had to give it a number, I'd give this a 9 out of 10. I enjoyed this show a lot, especially since it's some of the most grounded and realistic storytelling that we've seen in the MCU, whether that was through social and economic repercussions of the snap, complex villains who can't be painted with a brush as inherently good or evil, and all the issues of race and what it would mean to be a black Captain America. These three main things just made this show one of the best things in the MCU. Also, the pacing of these episodes did impress me a lot. Every episode felt meaty and was a substantial length, always around 50 minutes, which is something that WandaVision and The Mandalorian kind of struggled with. To me, this show is definitely better than WandaVision, which just couldn't stick the landing with the final 2 episodes in my opinion. I still did give WandaVision an 8 out of 10 though, and it's also a really great show. And I'm not sure if I'd put this above The Mandalorian, but I think we'll have to leave that debate for another video. Anyways, I'm hoping future MCU content tries to take a darker and more serious tone, just like this show, and actually bring up real world issues and other important topics that need to be discussed. This show has been really great, and I guess Disney also agrees because the future of this series has already been confirmed, which is going to be Captain America 4. It'll be an actual movie, which I really think Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan have proven that they could carry. I'm not sure what the name will be, but I got a hunch it'll be Captain America and the Winter Soldier, just because that's what they showed at the end of the series here. Although that'd be very similar to the second Captain America movie, Captain America the Winter Soldier, so that may be a little confusing. So we'll have to see what they go with for a name. Maybe they'll call it Captain America and the White Wolf instead. Who knows, we'll just have to wait and see. And yeah, so far the MCU Disney Plus series have not missed at all, which makes me even more excited for Loki, since that is the one I was most interested in when all of these were announced. And I'll be covering that show weekly as well. It is a little bit sad in a way. This is my final video for the Falcon and Winter Soldier series. It's been a long 6 weeks, but I've definitely enjoyed it. I will be covering Star Wars The Bad Batch as well when that launches in a couple of weeks. And after that, Loki and just everything else that Disney has for me to cover. I really enjoy doing these videos and talking about things outside of LEGO, so I'm going to continue to do them. And yeah, that's pretty much going to do it for this video. Make sure to let me know down in the comments of what you guys thought about the Falcon and Winter Soldier, what you guys thought about episode 6 or the series as a whole. Whatever you're thinking, anything and everything, leave it all down in the comments below. But that will pretty much do it for me. Again, thank you all so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.